All right, let's dive in. Today, we're talking about a system that literally calls itself a user's manual for your unique genetic vehicle. It's called human design, and the whole idea behind it is that it gives you a blueprint, a map, for how you're specifically designed to move through the world.
I mean, think about it. What if you actually came with a user's manual? Have you ever had that feeling like you're just winging it, just trying to figure out how to be you with zero instructions? It's such a common feeling, right? The sense that we're all just missing the manual for our own operating system. And that feeling, it gets cranked up to 11 by the world we live in. We are just constantly bombarded with messages telling us we need to be better, different, more. Be thinner, wiser, faster, richer, right? We're always being told to follow someone else's path, which can leave a lot of us feeling totally lost in the sea of one-size-fits-all advice. So here's where human design really flips the script. It says the journey isn't about adding anything or fixing yourself or improving, not at all. The whole point is to decondition, to basically strip away all the layers of who you think you're supposed to be so you can just become aware of and live as the person you were actually born to be. Okay, so where in the world did this system even come from? Well, its origin story is, let's just say, it's anything but ordinary. This isn't some ancient tradition we're talking about. It's a modern revelation, and it has a very, very dramatic beginning. So get this, back in January of 1987, a man named Ra Uruhu had this encounter that completely changed his life. For 8 straight days and nights, relentlessly, he claims he was basically penetrated by this consciousness he called the voice. And this intelligence, it just dictated the entire incredibly intricate system of human design to him. A wild synthesis of ancient mysticism and modern science, all downloaded in just over a week. Yeah, he described the experience as this terrifying, high-speed download. It was overwhelming, even violent, but at the same time, profoundly transformative. He was told the information wasn't just for him. The belief is that during those 8 days, the entire planet was seeded with this new knowledge, carried on, of all things, a stream of cosmic particles. And that brings us to a really core concept in how this system supposedly works. Human design says that we are all living in a neutrino ocean. The idea is that trillions of these tiny, tiny particles from stars are constantly passing right through us, and they're carrying information. And at 2 key moments in our development, these neutrinos allegedly leave an imprint on our unique genetic code, basically shaping our design. So all of that imprinted information, it gets mapped onto a chart, and that chart is called a body graph. The best way to think of it is like a circuit board for your own unique energetic and genetic makeup. It literally shows you exactly how you're wired. Now, here's what's really fascinating about how this chart is created. It's not just one calculation, it's a synthesis of 2 totally separate ones. First, you have the personality side. That's everything in black. It's calculated from your exact time of birth, and this is who you think you are, your conscious self. But then there's the design side in red. This is calculated from about 3 months before you were born. This is your unconscious side, the intelligence of your body that's just operating below your awareness. Okay, so the body graph itself is built on 9 energy centers. You can think of them as hubs for specific functions. For example, you've got the head center, which is all about the pressure of inspiration. Then there's the throat, which is the hub for communication and action. The G center relates to our sense of identity and direction, and there are 6 others, and each one has its own distinct role. Now, this is probably the most crucial part of the whole chart, how these centers show up. Some of them are colored in. Those are your defined centers. This is your consistent, reliable energy. It's what human design calls your true self. But the centers left white, those are undefined. This is where you are completely open, where you take in and actually amplify the energy of the people around you. It's where you can become really wise, but it's also where you are the most vulnerable to being pulled away from your true nature. So the whole experiment of human design is about shedding all that outside conditioning and learning to live from your true defined nature. And listen, this is not an overnight fix. The system says it takes about 7 years, which is roughly the time it takes for all the cells in your body to be completely renewed, to really decondition from a lifetime of these learned behaviors and outside influences. Okay, so if the big goal is to align with your true nature, where do you even begin? Well, the most practical first step is to understand your energy type. Based on how your centers are defined, every single person falls into one of four main types, and understanding this is really the most important key to starting to live your design.
All right, let's break down these four types. Each one has a totally unique way of interacting with the world. First up, about 70% of the population, so most of us, are generators. They're the life force builders, designed to respond to what life brings them. If they try to force things and initiate, they just hit a wall of frustration. Then you've got manifestors, about 9% of people. They're the initiators, the ones here to get things started. Their strategy is to inform people before they act, and if they don't, they meet resistance and feel anger. Next are the projectors, making up about 20%. They're here to be our guides, but they have to wait for the invitation to share their wisdom. If they don't, they experience deep bitterness. And finally, the rarest of all, at about 1%, are reflectors. They are completely open and need to wait a full lunar cycle, about 28 days, before making big decisions. This is how they find clarity and avoid disappointment.
Okay, so human design didn't just appear out of thin air. Even though that mystical experience was pretty recent, the components it pulls together are ancient. And that, of course, puts it right in the middle of a very old, ongoing debate. You see, the system is this incredible fusion of different wisdom traditions. It takes the 64 hexagrams from the Chinese I Ching, it maps them onto a wheel based on Western astrology, it structures the body around a 9-centered version of the Hindu chakra system, and it follows pathways that look a lot like the Kabbalah's Tree of Life. And then it wraps all of this ancient wisdom in the language of modern science. We're talking genetics and quantum physics. And of course, for a lot of people, the second you mention something like astrology, it's immediately dismissed. I mean, a pretty common scientific take is that the whole idea of planets influencing our lives has no foundation and, well, can be summed up by one word: rubbish.
And yet, it's also worth remembering that these very systems that human design pulls from were taken very seriously by some of history's greatest minds. We're talking about people like Pythagoras, Plato, St. Thomas Aquinas, and even Johannes Kepler, the father of modern astronomy. They didn't see these things as simple fortune-telling, but as symbolic keys to unlocking deeper truths about the universe. It just goes to show you that this search for a personal user's manual is a really timeless human thing.
So let's move beyond the wild origin story and the historical debates. What's the practical takeaway here? How are you actually supposed to use this information in your day-to-day life?
Well, it all boils down to two really simple tools for making decisions: your strategy and your authority. We just talked about strategy. That's your basic rule of engagement for moving through life with the least resistance. Your authority, on the other hand, is your body's unique, reliable way of knowing if a decision is correct for you. It might be an emotional wave, a gut feeling, or just a simple uh-huh or nuh-uh sound.
And this right here is probably the system's most challenging idea. It teaches that your mind, with all its pros and cons lists, its anxieties, and its rationalizations, is not actually equipped to be the decision maker for your life. It's a great tool for observing and sharing ideas, for sure, but your true guidance, that comes from your body. The whole experiment is to try and shift your decision-making away from what you think you should do and toward what your body's authority is telling you is correct for you. And this all leads to a really beautiful paradox. Human design shows you your limitations, your fixed, defined nature, and it says that real freedom isn't found by fighting against who you are, but by completely surrendering to it. The idea is that by simply living as you are designed, life can finally carry you exactly where you're meant to go. So we'll leave you with this question, which really gets to the heart of the whole system. If the journey isn't about trying to improve yourself, but it's actually about unbecoming everything that you're not, what's one thing about yourself that you've always tried to fix that maybe, just maybe, you could simply allow to be? Thanks for joining us.